Are you ready for this, Shae? It was just me for the first 7 years. It was just me and a mighty team of my board and collaborators. But over the last 2 years, we're now a team of five, and we have two contractors that we're able to utilize on an as-needed basis. And that has, I can't even describe how just a couple extra people has made our impact exponential.
Stacy, welcome to Grow Healthy, Help People, a podcast that Accordis puts on. So good to talk with you today and to hear more about 6degrees.org, the organization that you've been running for almost a decade now. Is that right?
That's right. Thanks for having me,
Uh,
Shae. I'm excited to be here.
So good to talk with you. So tell me a little bit about what you were doing before you began working at a nonprofit, running a nonprofit, and then I want to hear more about the mission of the nonprofit. So let's start with, how did you get from where you were to where you are today?
Yeah, I started my career in sales and business development. It's really something I fell into. I graduated 2006, and at that time I got my first job at ADP selling payroll, as one does. And I don't think anyone is like strives to be a salesperson, but I was just good at it naturally, and it just stuck, right? So like I kind of switched companies, and in that role, you kind of like self promote. You work somewhere for a couple years and then you switch industries and you move around. And eventually I found myself moving from California to the East Coast. And that was my first experience working with nonprofits. I sat on a board for a local chamber of commerce. And it was kind of the first time I was like, oh, I can be strategic. Like I actually have these other skill sets that I've never had the opportunity to utilize as an individual contributor salesperson. And so it was in those experiences I started kind of working on strategy, coordinating, creating events and publicity and these sorts of things, so that years later, when a friend of mine said, hey, I think that there's a role that you would be really good at, I said, okay, I'll take the meeting.
Give it a go. I'll
Yeah.
see how it works.
Yeah.
That's great. And so you went from working for larger for-profit organizations, leading sales teams, killing it in the sales
hmm
world, to then leading organizations from a board seat, to then leading an organization from a staff seat. Are you the executive director? Is that the right
Yep,
title?
I'm the executive director. Yeah.
So now you're in the seat leading the nonprofit. What has that shift been like? How does that feel going from for-profit world to nonprofit world?
I really interestingly don't think I have had a mindset shift the way that I think a lot of people that have been trained in the nonprofit space have. I really have seen this as just another sales role. You have to sit across from the person and say, hey, I think that there is something strategic we can do together. I think that I can help you meet your goals, and I think you can help us meet our goals. And
Love
how
it.
can we collaborate? So that I think has been a strength. Now, those that have worked for me, I can tell you, sometimes have been like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't like that email. It sounds like you're begging them. Like it sounds like we're like, please come and help us. When really it should say, hey, you get an opportunity to come alongside us in this really incredible work. And
Yeah.
your teams, your workforce, your family actually get to thrive and be a part of this in a really special way. So I think it's actually served me, but it's definitely not a traditional mindset.
Love that. So tell me more about 6degrees.org, 6 Degrees, the organization you're running. Tell me more about what you guys do, the history of where that comes from, and then like what some of your programs are today.
Oh my gosh, it's fun. So 6trees.org is a 501c3, not to be confused with the foundation, because often it can be.
Yep.
And it was started by actor, philanthropist, and musician Kevin Bacon
Okay.
around the small world phenomenon of 6 degrees of separation, which, if you know anything about Kevin Bacon, and depending on your viewer's age, you may or may not, 6 degrees
But
of,
most people do,
most
or at
people
least
do,
when
right?
they see a photo, they're like, "Oh yeah,
Oh
I get
yeah.
it.
Oh
Yeah, yeah."
yeah. This guy, he was just in a Marvel movie or whatever. Absolutely. I always say, like, if you are young, if your parents are cool, you know who Kevin Bacon is. So Kevin, around the early 90s, He's a prolific actor. He's been in a ton of films, and he's a character actor, which is important to note because he isn't an actor that's like, I want to chase this type of role. He's like, I want to play as many interesting characters as possible. So it doesn't matter if I'm in a movie for a couple minutes, but it's a character that I'm really passionate about, or if I'm the lead. I just want to do this craft and do it well with interesting people, interesting directors. And so because of that, he's been in a lot of different things. So there was a Albright University, a couple college students one night. They were probably drinking. We're watching a movie with Kevin Bacon. It ended, the next movie started. It was also Kevin Bacon. So they came up with this idea that I bet you could connect this guy to every other Hollywood actor in 6 degrees or less, playing off of the 6 degrees of separation theory. And this was pre-internet, and it caught fire. Like, it was eventually on like Howard Stern's show and late night shows. And Kevin started hearing about it and was really kind of annoyed. He thought that people were poking fun at his career. And until he did one of these late night shows, they surprised him by bringing these young men to the program, brought him into the green room. He was a little embarrassed, and then he realized, oh, they're actually fans. They were super deferential, were just so in awe of him and his body of work.
Okay.
And so he realized, okay, they're not poking fun. Maybe I can loosen up a little bit. But it just never went away. So years
And that
later,
was in like the late 90s, or when was
early
this?
90s, this was 1991.
I remember hearing that back in the day. I
Yeah.
mean, 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
Bacon, yeah.
Google even built it into their algorithm. Like, you could look up bacon number and it would tell you like your bacon number. So very fun for a long time. And so when he hit that point in his career, like a lot of people do that have had a lot of success, and he said, there's something more I want to do.
Yeah.
He was inspired by Paul Newman and Newman's own foundation. He's like, this is what this other actor did with his likeness, and he's making such an impact. What do I have that I could also lean into? And this six degrees came back into the fold. And so he really said, if you take me out of it, we're all just people that really don't just want to be connected, we need it. It's critical for our survival and how we exist in this world. And so all of our programming is around this idea that we need to be connected. And as I'm sure you know, social isolation is now declared an epidemic. It is pretty scary, the divide that we're seeing in this nation. And we believe that our antidote to hopelessness is service. And so we create a lot of opportunities for people to connect with nonprofits and each other, both in-person events through a variety of different kit packing or campaigns that we have across the country. And also we do a lot of production and content production for nonprofits, campaign creation to help them raise their awareness, but also increase their reach. Because we know the thing that makes us different is that we have this nice, shiny celebrity that people want to connect with because he's lovable and he's a very neutral character, and we love that. And so when we make a call and say, hey, do you think that you could help this organization out in these ways? It's a little easier for people to pick up the phone. And so we do a lot of campaign creation under our program Degree Shift. And that's where we bring in dozens of nonprofits under a similar umbrella or cause area, but they might have solutions that are focused in different ways to kind of getting to the root cause of something. And we say, let's build a campaign together, because a rising tide lifts all boats, and collective impact is what it's going to take to really make a dent in these issues and areas. We also, like I said, create a lot of content through Cause Evolve. And that's really short form, long form podcasts, panel conversations, really just driving thought leadership for nonprofits and change makers.
Great. So the line you said a minute ago, I want to make sure I get it right. The antidote for isolation is service. Is that what you said?
We say the antidote for hopelessness is
Hopelessness.
service.
So tell me more about that. I mean, I was looking on your website, and it looks like you're just bringing people together to work to serve others, and that is bringing them into relationship. And they're serving others, that's putting them into relationship. Tell me more about how you guys really do that day in and day out.
Yeah, absolutely. With 6 degrees, we we think about everything as like a holistic approach. So when we're doing and bringing a nonprofit, we call them our network partners into the fold. They may have one entry point, but we're thinking about all the ways we can deepen our impact and expose them to wider audiences. So building kits by Kevin Bacon, or BK by KB, was a big initiative that we launched in 2023 that we still carry on. And our goal when we first launched it was to build 40,000 essential resource kits, which were, as you could imagine, hygiene kits, items of care and comfort, and we distributed them to network partners across the whole country. So what this looked like is we would go into communities, and sometimes we worked with companies as partners and their employees. Other times we did the city of Payson, and we had 1,000 individuals and family members come into Payson High School and build 5,000 kits in one day for 4 different organizations. And what we say is when people are standing side by side, one, they are breaking that isolation. They think that they're there to serve someone else, but they're actually being served. They think that they're there to be the giver, but they're actually receiving as well. And that's even in the workplace. You might be sitting next to somebody that you've seen on Zoom a million times, but how long has it been since you've actually looked in their eyes? You've asked them a question, you actually learn about their kids or something else that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And we see the benefit of that. I mean, all the science and data shows that that personal one-on-one connection is really, really important for our mental health and our overall well-being. But we're also doing a lot of content capturing during that time, because the one thing about nonprofits is that they're limited resources, right? Oftentimes it's a badge of honor. We're putting everything back into the work. We're putting everything back into the programming. But the problem is, if no one sees what you're doing, then it's going to be really, really hard to get people to join you in that fight. And so a certain amount of funding just needs to go into marketing and telling your story. So we're often asking people questions, getting people's feelings in the moment about what they're experiencing, learning from the nonprofits. We always invite the nonprofit partners in so they can kind of share that this comb that you're packing isn't just a comb, it's dignity. This toothbrush isn't just a toothbrush, it's confidence for my constituents to walk into that job interview and feel like they're equal to their peers. And when you do that, people tend to want to lean in. And the goal is that the next step is that they can connect with these nonprofits directly and have ongoing service opportunities with them. If you're a workplace support, maybe your employees can actually leverage their skills and talents collectively to make an impact in those organizations. But everything that we do in person kind of will fan out into these storytelling opportunities, so that then people that are far and wide, they're not really connected to a community. They can kind of lean in. We think that the social feeds are necessary. They're not going away. So how can we push as much content that's positive and life-giving as possible so that people can feel more connected until they can actually be connected?
Great. You mentioned network partners. Do you
Mhm.
have dozens of network partners or hundreds of network partners? And then maybe tell me, highlight a couple stories of these network partners in the organizations you work with, but what you've been able to see the impact they're having through your work with them.
Absolutely. So since 2007, we've worked with thousands of organizations, and we call our network partners that for a reason, because they are our partners. But they're the nonprofit organizations that are typically under $3 million and less, because we think we can make the strongest impact when they're smaller. And a lot of times they're a lot smaller, like they make $250,000, maybe $50,000 a year, and they're really a volunteer-led organization. They usually fall into one of our 4 pillars, which is what we call emerging crisis, youth empowerment, equity and justice, or building sustainable living environments. And those are really meant to be broad. So it allows us to come alongside organizations to whatever exactly. But we were what we call agnostic of pillars for a long time, and it was very hard to get funding when you're like, we do everything, like, we just like wake up and we feel something and we want to do it. No, like, people want to know that you have like a driven focus. And so we kind of looked back at what we had done in the last decade and said, we kind of keep going towards youth programming. We kind of keep going back towards, helping the most underserved. We're thinking about mental health a lot, right? A lot of what we're doing and talking about is mental health. And so we kind of see that as like an emerging crisis that's continuing to need support. So The other important piece is that we only focus domestically. So we think there's a lot of
Okay.
really incredible international organizations that are
Yeah.
doing the work, and we will point you their way.
Yeah.
But we don't have
You're
boots on the
cheering them
ground
on. That's
there.
just not what you do.
Exactly, exactly.
Love that. So let's talk about leading a nonprofit. I'm thinking you guys have a big impact, but is your team very large? Is it a pretty small team? Are you guys pretty gritty? Or tell me the setup.
Are you ready for this, Shay?
Give it to me.
It was just me for the first 7 years.
There
It was
you
just
go.
me and a mighty team of my board and collaborators. But
Yeah.
over the last 2 years, we're now a team of five, and we have two contractors that we're able to utilize on an as needed basis. And that has, I can't even describe how just a couple extra people has made our impact exponential. It has, and even in just thought partnership and carrying the kind of the weight and the heavy load. We often laugh about our Zoom calls because we're remote and kind of all over the country. But there's like the first 10 minutes is usually just like a therapy session. It's a lot of like checking in and laughing a lot and seeing how we can kind of come alongside you in the season of life that you're in. But I think that's really important when you're shaping a culture that you want to be reflective of the work that you're doing. Like you have to make space for people to just be human. But we're a really small and mighty team because we rely a lot on partnerships with other nonprofits, partnerships with funders and corporate partners. And luckily, we have a very strong network of organizations that have said yes to the ask of come alongside us in this campaign or in this project and initiative.
That's great. So what are the big items you see on the next 12 to 24 month horizon? What are the things you're looking forward to organizationally?
Mm, Something very special. So we have been working on how do we scale what we're doing so that we can help as many people as possible. I think that's always the goal in the nonprofit space. But how can we do it in a way that keeps expertise and quality at the highest regard? And so we are building a platform currently. We know that there's a lot of for-profit entities that support nonprofits from like a fundraising perspective and strategy perspective. And where we know that our expertise is really lied is in marketing and communications, helping them to expand their audience, their reach, and eventually their donors, but just from a storytelling perspective. And so we are going all in on this. We are excited. We just completed a cohort with University of Maryland's MBA program that put together a really strong go-to-market strategy for us. We're going to be doing
Okay.
a beta test this fall into winter with several dozen nonprofits to really get to test the system.
Hmm.
And then we're looking to expand into a larger pilot in 2026. And the reason we're doing this, like I said, we've been telling these stories and working with nonprofits for a very
Yeah.
long time. But there was a vacancy that I had on my team early this year. And when we posted the vacancy, what I saw was a post on LinkedIn that went viral overnight. We had more than 1,000 applications, and the applicants were rarely from the nonprofit space. Obviously, there has been a lot of layoffs in right now, but what we were seeing were like people from Disney and Warner Brothers and all of these really highly regarded, yes, absolutely, production companies. And they were like, I want to do something of impact. And there's a theme there that they want to do something of impact, but I'm like, we can't afford you. Like nonprofits have to do the hardest work that has like for the lowest budget, and it's really not fair. And that's a whole nother podcast of like, why is that? That makes absolutely no sense. And we're going to constantly push against that as much as we can. But we want to create a way for people to access that top tier talent at a fraction of the cost. And so part of this platform is going to get people access to these producers and video editors and strategists that can come in and make a huge impact to a group of organizations that can have fractional access to them. And we are So excited about it. We're currently in a campaign right now doing that. It's called Purpose Produce. And that's, we've basically paired six small grassroots nonprofits. We had 300 applicants. We had to wheeled it down to six, and we paired them with top tier advertising agencies. Like some of these agencies are like, they call them advertising royalty. They work with some of the largest brands in the whole world. These nonprofits that are very small could never even dream of affording them, and they are building these 360 campaigns that I am telling you, on the calls where they've unveiled these, there are people that are just in tears. It is going to have transformational impact. And what we keep on hearing from these partners are that we can't even get an audience with this type of creative expertise. So having a,
Them. Yeah.
how do you, yeah, exactly, exactly. And you can make a call or send an email, but typically they're getting such an onslaught of that type of outreach, they can't say yes to everything. And so we know that we can leverage our connections, our network, and our relationships to really get those doors open. And then we act as the person that is fielding these relationships, letting people know the expectations, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and that helps everyone to have a really strong experience in this type of service oriented work and want to say yes again, right? And really respect that these thought leaders are coming in to support your organization, and they're going to listen to you, because we talk about how they really have to center the organizations and their expertise, they're closest to the work. But you also have to respect that these creatives know what they're doing, and it has to be a trusted process. So we're seeing these videos are going to start being released in October and through the end of the year, and we know that this is just the tip of the iceberg of what we're going to be able to create with these nonprofits.
That's awesome. So the platform is being released in beta with some close organizations and friends that you know now, but you're
Hmm.
hoping to ramp that up in 2026, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you know a name for the platform yet? Are you announcing the name of the platform, or that's still not announced yet?
It's still not announced.
Okay.
Purpose Produce has been kind of the campaign name that we've done with our partners at Advertising Week, and we have this kind of secondary slogan where cause meets creative, and we're leaning into that, but we're open. I think it's important that it reflects the partnership and the leadership behind 6 Degrees, but we haven't decided if it's going to be kind of a standalone project where, yeah, like a product. Exactly. And so we are, just like we're telling nonprofits to do with these partnerships that we've created with them, we're trusting the experts. So we're talking to folks, we're having a lot of focus groups. After we go through this beta test, we're going to really dive in deep to the data, and we're going to analyze it, and then we're going to do what the data tells us to do.
That's great. So if anyone viewing this podcast sees this or hears about this, could they find out more on your website possibly? Or what's the best way if it's 26 or 27 for them to be able to find out more about this?
Please have them reach out.
That's great.
They can send a note through 6degrees.org. They can find us on all of our socials. Instagram is at 6 degrees of KB, as in Kevin Bacon. We would love to connect. I'm happy to share my details in your
Yep, we'll
episode
put it in the show
notes.
notes.
Please
Yep.
do, because if you're a partner, a potential partner, if you have a skill, a talent, a workforce that you could leverage, that is how we're going to build this. Like, we're going to build it by bringing thought leaders to the platform, creating amazing content that's not a
Yeah.
sales pitch, it's not a come and work with us, but really just
Telling good
providing,
stories.
telling really good stories, how to do
Yeah.
it, from media relations to everything that you can think of, communication planning. And it's really going to be a game changer. We think
Yeah.
we know it is. So we would love to connect with anybody that's interested.
I'm encouraged, Stacey, as we're talking, I'm thinking, someone, Kevin Bacon, has success in a career, and then at a point he says, I want to have more impact. I don't just want to be good at what I do, I want to have impact. And I love that he's taking his relationships and your relationships and just multiplying those, putting more fertilizer on those trees and seeing them grow and bear more fruit. So it's
Hmm.
encouraging to talk with you today. As people have watched this episode, they can check more out at 6degrees.org. They can message you, they can connect with people on your team there. And also, if anyone's watching this and you're a nonprofit leader and you're saying, There's just more to do than I can get done. Accordis, our company that puts this podcast on, we're a back office for nonprofits and ministries. Accounting, database, marketing, those kinds of things. We're probably not at the production level of Stacy's organization. We're probably not at 6degrees.org level for production, but we do a lot of great back office work for lots of organizations. If you need anything from us, we'll put that in the show notes also. Stacy, so good to talk with you today. Thanks for the work you're doing. And I hope you have a great afternoon and God bless.
Same to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Good day.
You too. Bye bye.